Gerard Whateley was taken aback, but I can tell you, people have taken to the Carter report with a stick, and today in particular. Let me take you through, Cara.
I just want to say I'm a massive Gerard Whateley fan, but I think he's misread this one. And, he's one of the great commentators in this country on any sport, including AFL football. But this is not a great moment for Tasmania. The task force, the Premier, people who wanted this to happen was so disappointed by the way the AFL presented the Carter report, by the Carter report itself, by the way the Commission has yet again hidden behind yet another report. And I'm afraid, and I spoke to people at the AFL and they were trying to sell it the way Gerard sold it, but that is not correct, that this was great for Tasmania. This was buck passing of the highest order. So let's just park that for a moment because we want to move to the next stage. And he wasn't the only one, by the way, who misread it.
Why do you think he misread it so badly?
I think a lot of media just completely misunderstood what was going on.
And sometimes with these things, Ross, certain media organisations or media personalities are briefed and they might be taken through and they get... It makes sense. If you're sitting there with Colin Carter for 2 hours over a cup of coffee and you know him well and they've worked together, Gerard and Colin Carter have worked together on various things like introducing
and the
VFA
AFL did a bit of briefing too, Ed.
No, totally, yeah. I'm not.
So he gilded his opinion because he's had a coffee.
No, but you can actually maybe go into some more detail. So Gerard might have been able to have a bit more feel for it. Yeah, Let me just bring you back to today. That's a separate issue. Here's what the Premier of Tasmania said to me today. Right. He underlined yet again what he said in that press conference on the weekend. He said he's frustrated and he believed that the AFL, that he had to deal with the AFL to table a resolution to the presidents in December. And he has said now, well, I don't care. That was what I was told. So if it doesn't happen, this is what's going to happen. Hawthorn and North Melbourne, the deals are off the table. This is the exclusive that he gave me today for Footy Classified. He will pivot state, that's Tasmanian state resources, to soccer, Olympics, A-League and the NBL is already down there. He said, I just want an answer. I can live with a no, but I won't cop another 12 to 18 months of indecision. I'm not going to cop that. To the next page, if we have a look at this. He says he's prepared to work with the AFL on a COVID recovery and its economic impact. So what he's saying is, let's relax. I just need to know that this is going to happen and that there is an absolute belief that we should have a team in Tasmania. He's opened a discussion on private ownership, which wasn't addressed in the Carter report, and can push entry to a team from 2026 to 2030. So he's not dying in a ditch over we want this particular day. He just wants to know. Now, late tonight, Gil and McLachlan, after I'd spoken with Peter Gutwin today, the Premier of Tasmania and Gil McLachlan had a meeting, and Gil has reported to me that we will, that's the AFL, come together with Tasmania and there is a commitment to work this out.
Of course there is, because, Hawthorn and North Melbourne need the money, and I think the AFL have handballed it over to them and said, you do the deals, Hawthorn and North Melbourne, it's not our problem anymore. But they've been quite taken aback, Ed, and I think this is reflected in your report by how angry people are by the buck passing. Colin Carter is offended by what he perceives as criticism of him. Now, I'm more critical of the AFL than I am of Colin, but there's just one sort of main facet of this report that I wanted to highlight, which I think was the thing that really disappointed me. And it was a paragraph where he basically made a case for a 19th licence, but said that a relocated team or a joint venture would be more sustainable potentially and therefore should be considered before a 19th licence. Now, that's not a solution. That's not a suggestion. There was no timeline, not even COVID dependent, and that is why Peter Gutwin was so disappointed. And the Commission would have been high-fiving, going, "Thank God we can kick this can down the road."
So that's a recommendation. That's the recommendation.
No recommendation.
But it is.
They went in with three choices and they came out with three choices.
But there's 4 and 5 choices. We put up a plan on this show that a lot of clubs are now coming back. Just hold on for a second, Ross. I just want to say this. The teams who are down there, North and Hawthorn, right, they're furious. You have a look at North Melbourne. Use them as an example, OK? North Melbourne now can't go and negotiate to stay down there and do things because it's then seen that they're involved in the start of a relocation. Their members will burn down the North Melbourne Social Club.
We don't need to use that.
But you said they hadn't fair income down there anyway, Ed. So you know what? If they had not fair income down there anyway, well, you're out. I don't mind.
But there's ways around this.
No, you can do it more subtly. I suppose where I'm confused is, and we're saying it's a report, what was the objective when it was set up? And let's say it's $200,000 to do this report. What was the objective to actually, because I've sat here and heard you go through detail a solution and a plan. If you're going to instigate the report? Isn't there an objective? Don't just make, here's the options. Isn't it, this is what needs to be done? Isn't that the path we should go down?
So Colin was actually
I think he should have been stronger, and the Commissioner probably believed that he wasn't.
So I think Colin was given a term of reference, and he's reported faithfully. Now, Colin and I both share that private ownership doesn't work in Australian sport. However, things have changed. Now you've got people like Goldman Sachs buying into the Spanish league. We've got genuine people with money.
So it does work.
Genuine money in Australia.
So it can work.
Not Christopher Skase, not Jeff Edelston, who are frauds.
Work, but it can work.
It could work, and it should be looked at. Now, I'd like to put this up. You know what I'd really like to do, and I know you're going to fall off your chair when I say this, Caro. We have to start again.
Try not to, Ed.
We have to start again. Right? This whole idea about Tasmania, we've lost the plot on this. Since the Olympic Games came into play, it is a whole new world. Let me just point this up for you, okay? So I want a whole new competition plan for what AFL football looks like in 2030, and the Commission and the AFL need to get on it. They need to combat, because it's a two-edged sword, the Olympics, and capitalise on the 2032 Brisbane Olympic Games. That is, get themselves in position so that the best talent doesn't get stolen, but capitalise on the infrastructure that is going to be available not only in Queensland, but the political leverage, particularly into Tasmania. Now, soccer becomes a big play here at the moment. Soccer is at the Olympic Games, right? We've seen that. We all watched it, and particularly the women's. The Women's World Cup is coming to Australia in 2023, and there is a bid going in for 2030, 2034 for the Men's World Cup. Okay, that should fire everyone up. So I would like the AFL to go away and consider this. They need to come up with a holus bolus proposal that takes into account Tasmania, Far North Queensland and Darwin. Do you go? 19 doesn't work. It's 20 teams or 18, I reckon. 20 teams. Have a full national competition so that football, AFL football, owns Australia. 20 teams. Two-time 10-team conference could come into play. The women's got to be there. That way you can set up your media rights and your stadium infrastructure and your political lobbying so that on a day down the future we can say, bang, Tasmania. It's not New Norfolk versus Penguin. It's like watching the West Coast Eagles running on. We can't have Tasmania look like a second-rate citizen involved in this. And I just reckon that the report was too much of 1980s. Where do we get rid of a problem in Victoria and dump it somewhere else? You can't send somebody who doesn't want to go somewhere to somebody who doesn't want to have them and expect success.
Is the financial destruction that COVID's caused, not only to the whole, but we're just talking AFL, is that the underwriting issue here?
But it's part of it. But Ross, like anything, you can see that as a negative or a positive. You know, we're going to have stimulus packages. Sport is going to be massive, but the sport money is going to go to Queensland and the Olympics. How do we amortise? How do we get in and leverage that back to football? And I just think that the Carter report, and I said I'm not having a go at Colin Carter, and he's done this in good faith, but I look at it and think there's a far bigger vista out there if you approach it this way, that we can come up with some solutions. And if the answer is no, the answer is no. But what we can't say is the answer is sort of this and maybe that and maybe that, and North don't want to go. And
last point, you just have to look at the personnel. The AFL seem to downgrade the people they have in Tasmania running AFL there. Each time they put someone in, they've treated them shamefully, I think, from the start of the AFLW as well.
Well, I'd get your Gold Coast, Caro, and put that as Tasmania. Your Gold Coast list before I'd get whoever's not going to the Gold Coast, according to you, I'd put him in a Tassie.
I wrote a column saying Graham Allen should be put in charge of them when he left Collingwood. Yeah. Anyway, just you mentioned the Olympics and you mentioned sport and AFLW. This column by Roy Masters caught my eye in the Age the other day in Nine Media in the Sydney Morning Herald. He's basically saying AFLW is looming as a monster challenge for all those brilliant gold medals, which are primarily won at the Olympics in Australian terms by women athletes, because all the great male athletes tend to choose footy or cricket. And it really, you're talking the other way around.
I think Roy, good rugby league man, wolf in sheep's clothing on this. I think this was I reckon this was a rocket to the rugby league, National Rugby League, NRL. But I look at it and see Queensland's where all the money's going. Queensland's where all the gold medals have just gone, and Far North Queensland and Darwin, to me, is a bigger play for equalisation, for the anti-racism play we want to get into, developing Indigenous players up there, and together in concert with Tasmania, that's where we should be looking at a bigger overall. Dumping North Melbourne or anybody or St Kilda into Tasmania, I think, is a disaster.
We still don't want to be losing all our best athletes to AFLW, though, as much as we want that to succeed.
But that won't happen. But what'll happen in that situation, Cara, is we should jump in. This is my point. We should jump in with the Olympics now and even pool resources. If you can run the 100 in 10 seconds, you're going to the Olympic Games. If you can run it in 10.5, you're on the halfback flank for Collingwood. That's where we should be looking, creating young people, the dream of the Olympics, the dream of AFL football. Very hard to win an Olympic gold medal to get to a final. With this, we're talking about 1,600 players, men and women, playing senior AFL football on the best grounds, on the best television deal, in Australia, in the best country. Jeez, I reckon I could sell that one.
So the AFL is overworked, under-resourced and exhausted, and they've done an unbelievable job in getting this season as far as they have, but they've dropped the ball on Tasmania, and this needs to be invigorated and invigorated quickly.
And I think, Caro, what we need to do is come together in the spirit of congeniality here and work it through. And if Premier Gutwin can say, can I give us a little bit more time to get through this year because everyone is cooked and we're looking at the finances.
He needs to stand firm on those multi-million-dollar deals, though.
Totally, yeah. That doesn't mean, acquiescing doesn't mean defeat, OK? You sometimes just have to play, and I think that today's meeting with Peter Gutwin and Gillon McLachlan was one that may have saved the day for a minute.
And the task force and Colin Carter are talking again too. So I think there's a lot of placating to be done after what happened over the weekend.
Well, as I said, I'd start again and I'd have a different frame of reference. And the Commission might have to actually sit down and say, what does 2030 look like with all these other things converging, plus COVID? That's what it needs, not another one out of the drawer from 1980.